Hey, good afternoon. This is Bill Gross, and I'm filling in for Chad Corbett on the Probate Mastery Mastermind call. We do this every Tuesday, so I'm glad to help you. Understand we all have little different solutions and problems. Let me just start with first, who here has a success they'd like to share them? Anybody have a probate listing they took recently or closing?
Yeah, I can jump on here, but it was a little before I really started to implement this model. And we found that somebody at probate really didn't want to deal with the attorney, the courts, all of this and that. They had deals on the table that were better than ours, but really nobody was listening to anything they were saying. I kept going back to him. I wasn't even picking up on this in the beginning, but as soon as I turned around and was like, listen, what is it that you need that nobody else is, asking or offering or bringing to the table? He's like, man, I just want this to be done. I want you to go talk to my attorney, figure out the logistics and just handle this. And I'll take, whatever. So we ended up beating out people with an offer that was 15 grand lower and netted us another 15 grand on what we thought we were going to bring in. And we signed that contract for 40,000. All he wanted was somebody to deal with his attorney, work with the attorney on the paperwork, getting the appraisal done, which really wasn't even necessary in the end because the court approved what the sale was end up being. And we got a $40,000 assignment on that one.
Right. Where was this? What area?
This was in Hingham, Massachusetts,
Okay.
in the south part of Mass.
Yeah, look, I think good fundamentals are always good fundamentals. And when you talk to a prospect, the most important thing is to know what they want. And too often we want to beat them over the head with our company's features and benefits. And it doesn't really matter. What do they want? And once you ask the question and solve the problem, it puts you in position. And I will say that particular need, handling the attorney, handling the paperwork is when I get regularly. I work with a lot. And I've learned how to use paralegal service to help me distinguish myself from the competition because the attorneys are very expensive. The salesmanship is often lacking, I find. Good for you, Eamon. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let me share with you today why am I running time. So I want to just share with you. When I took Chad's course, he challenged us to go to court. I think one of the things that I try to do different than the competition is I approach the business as a probate expert. I go to court regularly. I would impress the attorneys. I would impress the judges. That's worth a lot to me. One way is when I go to court, I dress like an attorney. I wear a dark suit. My coat's actually hanging on the door. But this morning I was called as a witness on a case I had. And while I could get away not being an attorney, wearing a dress shirt or polo shirt, I want to look like an attorney. So that's why I wore my coat and tie, because I want to look like an attorney to the judge. I want to look like an attorney to the attorneys and to my prospects. And I think it's important when you get a chance, if your goal is to work at the court and if your goal is to work with attorneys, make sure you look like them, talk like them, act like them, and dress like them. Somebody on this call a week or two ago asked me about going to lunch with the attorneys. And I said, how do attorneys in your market dress? That's how you should dress. And now in court in LA, you cannot go to the judge without a coat on if you're an attorney. But realtors will show up all the time. There was a time when I was a kid that you weren't allowed in court at all without a coat and tie on. Different time, different age. But I want to look like them, so I wear a suit and tie when I go to court. And I would say to all of you, the most important criteria, though, is look like your prospects. If your attorney dresses in a suit, then you should dress in a suit. If you go to lunch with them or go by and see them. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So those are my victories for the week, is being an expert witness. You get paid really good money to answer questions. Stephanie Worley, hand up. What's up, lady?
So I'm curious, like calling the probate courts, or I call and listen to their voicemail, and everything was still closed because I love that. I love go to the probate court and be a presence, and I thought it was awesome. But now we can't do that. So I was wondering if you had any ideas or tips or tricks or, what we could do to adapt that kind of to COVID a little bit.
Yeah, great question. So I used to go to court every day, Monday through Friday. I was there at 7:45. I buy a cup of coffee. I stand in the main hallway. My goal was to bump into people, introduce myself to attorneys and estates. And then I would go into a courtroom. Again, that was Chad's initial suggestion. And then listen to, there's a certain part of the day they call the calendar. It's like the beginning. They cover most cases there. And I went every day. I did that for about 2.5 years. It was great. But can't do that today. So what I will say is, I don't know. Every court's different. Some courts are wide open right now, depending on your county. Some are shut down tight. Mine's shut down tight. But whenever I get a chance to be on, I go in person. So sometimes I've gone for court confirmation sales. I go in person, even though I could go on video. I'd rather go there to meet the attorney and have the judge see me. And then when I can't and have to video, I always dress like an attorney. So I was on vacation to Florida for a week, in the middle of which I had this appearance on a court matter, but I brought a coat, tie, and dress shirt. I brought a stand up for my camera so I could stand up, and I brought the equipment to run a video to talk to attorneys because I wanted to make a professional appearance and maximize that opportunity. So I'm not really sure how to answer the question for you purposely, but that's specifically, that's kind of my strategies is when I have a chance to go to court, I would go, and I would always dress like the attorney. In fact, I have 2 sets of business cards. I have my realtor cards, picture and such, color. And I have my attorney cards, which are like attorney's business cards. What do they look like? Anybody know? What do all attorney's business cards look like? Almost.
No pictures.
No picture, no logo, black and white, right? So I have 2 sets of cards. So I mean, attorney, I always give them that card. Why would I give them that card? That's what they think the business card looks like. I would look like one of them. So to answer your question, something depends on your market, but I would say whenever you are, somebody should say, wow, I think that's an attorney. That's what you want them to say.
Do you feel like maybe a bar association meeting or something like that, we could accomplish the same thing?
I'm a member in LA County, LA Bar Association. Just today, I signed up for San Bernardino. Definitely. Now, I'm not going to mixers. There's a personal amount of time you have to think about how you invest in your business. I'm 62 years old. I need to get a good night's sleep. I need to be home, need to exercise. I have a brand new grandchild. So I want to work 8 to 5. I don't want to go out at night to a mixer. That's me. Some of you are building your business. You should go out to mixers. Some of you enjoy them, then go out. So you make your own decision. They have classes online that I jump in on either live or always watching the ones that relate to my topic. They're on YouTube. Some are members only, some are not. But when I'm on, of course, what am I wearing, right? So definitely, I would say that Bar Association events are a great place. If your business is about meeting attorneys, great place to go and meet them, bump into them. And again, they're opening up more. LA is different. Other areas are opening up more. Eamon, your hands up again.
I have a 2-part question for you. When you're going to court, what is that actually looking like? And I guess, how are you interacting with people in the probate court in that capacity?
Sure. So I would say that I did a couple of things. I'd say 3 categories of activities. Number 1, when I had nothing else to do, just like a realtor would door knock a farm area, I farmed the courthouse. Now, again, I was in the largest probate courthouse in America. We had, I think, 9 different rooms on 2 different floors, plus a research room. And so when I had nothing else to do, I would just look to meet people in front of probate courtrooms, either attorneys. I would walk up and introduce myself, no different than a realtor door knocking, right? We also had a research room where they have computers, people can look files up. I would be there and I was Mr. Helpful. If you have a problem, how can I help you? Looks like you're struggling, could be assistance. And I would just bump into attorneys there. They'd see me. So that's number 1 activity. Number 2 activity is I would go, there were times that I had court matters, like I'm representing a buyer, I'm bidding on a property for court approval, or I'm representing an estate selling that needs court approval. Of course, I go to court for those matters. The third thing I did was, because I was going every day, I actually created a meetup and I would invite investors who wanted to learn about probate court to meet me at court, and I would give them a quick 15-minute walkthrough. And think about it, if you were an attorney and you saw me there every day, and you saw me walking around with 2 or 3 students asking me questions and me answering them, what do you think about me as a real estate broker?
Knowledgeable. You're clearly some sort of authority figure in this capacity.
There you go. Truth is, I just know more than those idiots. I didn't need to know a lot at that point, right? And
I'd ask you where you get the coffee from.
Very nice. Very nice. ProbateWeekly.com. If you're the guest of the week, you get your personalized version of it. Back in those days, you also didn't sit in a room and watch the proceedings. And so I did that when there's certain times where everybody kind of goes in the room. So I would go in the room and watch and learn what was going on. I would watch a court sale at least every day. And so in 1 year, for example, I saw 300 court sales. Most judges don't see more than 50 a year. So I saw way more than a judge or attorney or real estate agent as a result of all that. So that quickly, made me an expert by the virtue of the experience I had and what I'd actually seen. And there are cases where, there's certain rules, and I'll give you one rule. For example, the law says that you can't sell a property with court approval at less than 90% of the court appraisal, the probate referee's inventory appraisal. Well, there's exceptions. And the attorney's just like, no, that's the law. And I'll say, but I've seen judges approve exceptions. I've sold property where the judge granted us an exception. Because by seeing the exception, now I know what they're looking for and make sure I position my property to be worthy of the exception for my attorney. So I can say to my attorney, hey, I know that there's this rule, but here's what I've seen Judge so-and-so do. And here's how we need to prepare for that. That became very valuable to the attorneys I work with.
Yeah. So it's the precedent has been set and you can leverage that with facts. That's great. And the second part of the question is, how are you finding your relationships with these attorneys? I'm assuming a lot of people in here starting out like myself. Where are you finding that things are really starting to click? I've avoided calling the lists that we're getting because, I ran through some calls, was trying to connect with some people and they weren't really responding unless I got a client.
Cold call, really?
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, but we're trying to, make sure we're bringing value. And I think that's going to come with referrals, but I'm just failing to see where things might start to click or build a stronger connection. Obviously, this is time, patience. It's going to take months to find, a Rolodex of people. But in your experience, where have you found things start to come to fruition?
Well, I won't say that's been my biggest area of success. I would say the opposite. That's been the hardest part of this, the part that for the amount of energy I put into attorney relationships, I can get as much out of as I think I should. That said, when you get them, they're very valuable. My approach is I say there's 11 different ways to get business. And by working the attorneys, when you work the other side, the petitioner or the property or the investors, and then you find the attorney that you've been marketing to, maybe you went to lunch with them. They'll give me some inside information that makes the difference in the deal. So to me, I feel like that's the advantage of a multi-pronged approach. I'm in a very big market where that's not as common. In a small market, I imagine is much more common. That if you're just working with petitioners and you're also, let's say, taking an attorney to lunch once a month, you'll bump into that attorney because you're in a small market than I am. And I do know one agent who's been in Chad's program and he's been in this call. He's not here now. I don't see him. And I don't want to call him out in case he doesn't want to share. But talking to personally, I do know that he's the only agent I know who cold called attorneys consistently. And as a result of that, built a probate-based real estate business. And the truth is, I think he would say he really has one or two really good relationships and a couple others as well. And absent those one or two, it wouldn't have been worthwhile, if that helps a bit.
I would like to add to that, if that's okay.
Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
One thing I found over here was what Chad often calls some social capital with attorneys. When I run my probate list, when I was buying the probate lead, I noticed there wasn't one attorney in our market dominating. Over here in Louisiana, it's called successions. A lot of the attorneys here kind of pick that up at side work. They don't specialize in it. So I went back to my best title attorney, where, by the way, in the course of most of these probate sales, he has to go in and fix the successions and revise them because they didn't do the legal description right, or, they just didn't put everything in right to give a merchantable title. So instead, I brought the list to him and said, look, there's no one doing that's dominating. Why don't we do this? So now what we're doing is he'll run a preliminary title search for me when I go on the listing appointment, and I'll offer that as a service. He does a preliminary title, make sure that, he doesn't go back 50 years. He just makes sure everything looks fine. And then in return, the estate will reserve the title attorney. In the MLS, will say seller reserves title attorney, and we send it to him. Also, if there's a succession that needs to be done, or maybe we did one estate and we have another succession that an heir passed away along the way, very common in Louisiana for some reason, he will do the succession and get paid at closing if he can do the title, be the closing attorney. So he's stout enough to be able to float that bill, and it helps my executor. It kind of takes an issue off the table. And again, no one's dominating it. So he's actually starting to position himself to be that guy.
It's as you said, Josh, when I started in probate and researched the prior 2 years history, 95% of the cases were done by attorneys who had done one case or less in the prior 2 years. And that was an only case where they did one 95% of the time. So, which means a couple of things. One is nobody dominated, to use your word, from marketing. There's a marketing opportunity. Second was that the 95% don't do a very good job. And the customers aren't very happy with them after spending all the money.
That's right.
If you can help them do a job better, then they're open to that.
And I'll give you a prime example that I'm really hammering over here at this point, because a lot of my probate stuff comes from referrals. And what I'm really hammering in my meetings are use someone that knows what they're doing. A lot of times these probate attorneys or succession attorneys, as it's called here, they'll run in and get the tax assessor's value, which is commonly undervalued, which sets that estate up to pay a fortune in capital gains tax. Instead of just getting a BPO, we don't even have to have appraisals here in Louisiana as long as the estate is debt free or sufficient enough to cover its bills. So I'm going around, why wouldn't you do this? We do it for free every day. Get a BPO, get what the property's worth, instead of running and putting whatever the tax assessor has it valued at, which is a blanket value, which usually leaves it $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 undervalued, which sets them up for capital gains tax.
And I think the thing to take away, because every market's different. I will say, Josh, you're in a state that's older as far as American law than California. And your typical real estate has been transacted more times, whereas we've been subdivided maybe in the 1850s or 1900s. Louisiana goes back further than that. Not to mention you have different law from French law. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why different states are different. But the fundamental principle here is if you really learn the system, you look for those nooks and crannies where nobody else even knows to operate, master it, then who's going to compete with you, right? And title is a great place to do that. Yeah, Josh.
I have one quick question I want to brainstorm with you. So here, it doesn't function, I mean, it's Louisiana, so what do you expect? It doesn't function the way any other probate system I've heard you guys explain. There is no probate clerk here. The clerk of court you can't go and start a succession on your own. You actually have to go to the law center, I went to the law center and I took my name tag off and I wanted to go through the process. And I think just to get in with the law center is like $250. So there is no probate clerk. There is no way to start it yourself. It's got to be started with an attorney. So, by the time they hit the courthouse, most of the time the estate has already settled. Judgment of possession, I don't know what it's referred to in other states. Judgment of possession has been filed, placing the property in possession of the heir.
Wow. Totally different.
Luckily, I run on referrals, and most of the time, when they come to me, it's because they've already got that part done, but they're not finished. They still have to, do personal property dispensation, things like that to get the estate closed out. But for most of the time, the real estate's already been judgment of possession, placed in the possession of the heirs.
Well, it happens pretty fast here too, many times. Just my unscientific analysis would be over half the property. They already picked an agent they're going to list with before the filing has been approved within 30 days. And yet they may or may not, doesn't mean I wouldn't continue with them, but there's some of that too. That's common in all markets. The other thing I'm saying, Josh, is you don't need an attorney, though you kind of do. There's a service I use. It's really like a self-service, kind of like QuickBooks or kind of like Quicken, called easy-probate.com. They're in all 50 states. And they are attorney-owned. They have the licenses they need, but they're more of a paralegal kind of service. And so what I'll do with somebody who hasn't filed on their own or has filed on their own and is stuck in the mud is I'll push into that service to get the filing moved forward as a referral. Now, if they're more complicated, then you would refer it to a proper, in your case, a succession attorney or here, a probate attorney. Really, probate attorneys here, it's an expensive process. And if it's a standard probate, there's really no reason for it to go that route. Okay, good. Other questions? Yes, Ruben.
This is my first time in this meeting, and I'm also in the divorce niche. So what I do, I send email to family law attorneys, and I tell them that I would like to meet with them, and I show them there are certain gaps in their practice that sometimes can put them in trouble, or their clients could be affected by their decisions of those gaps. So do you guys have a list of gaps in probate that we can do as realtors so they want to work with us? So I offer like a complimentary service of things that I can do for them, even to keep the property, because I have a partner that he's a loan officer. Sometimes they want to keep the property, which I don't care, but sometimes if they want to sell, they will use me as a listing agent. So I was wondering if there's a list of things that they can be kind of interested in working with us, being different from the rest of the realtors that sometimes call them to get listings.
So I would go to court every day and I started making a list of all the mistakes I saw various states, attorneys or realtors make in the selling of real estate. And I just made a list of them. And then for each one, I create a solution. So I have a list of mistakes, I have a list of the solutions. But
They're important to me because I saw those mistakes and I understand the solution. I think I would challenge every person in sales to do the same thing, to think about what are the mistakes the competition's making. For example, in my MLS, I have a search for all properties that are listed, they're designated probate. And do I get as a realtor, just like I might as a buyer, look at certain properties, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in this neighborhood, I get all the probate listings. And I read the agent remarks on everyone. In the beginning, I noticed certain common mistakes. They didn't update the court date when the court date was set. They didn't update the court date after the court date passed. They didn't update the list price after the property was sold initially. A number of mistakes like that. And I went to court and noticed them. And so I just created. And so I would challenge all of you. And if you don't know the answers, you really can't sell them because you don't know the solution. But you all know some of those mistakes. And I would say spend some time. And the two things I would tell somebody who wanted to learn this business is pull in your MLS all the probate listings and look at them. Who's the listing agent? Is there a commonality to that? Do they double in their deals all the time or not? Or some don't. Is there a commonality to that? What are the private remarks? Which are the good private remarks that as an agent would help you sell the house? What's lacking? How many times they don't have pictures or they have one picture or they don't have anything much showing the property? Start with the MLS. And then the second thing that Chad challenged me to do was go to court and watch the proceedings. And I think if you just go there, pay attention and make a list, we all could create our own list. That's what I would urge you to do. Does that help a little bit, Ruben?
Yeah, but I don't understand what's the use of seeing the mistakes done by the realtor where they already have a listing. There's nothing we can do.
I talked to an attorney and I'll say, in my experience of going to court regularly, I've noticed that real estate agents, other ones you might be using now, making any one of a number of 36 mistakes that cause the estate to lose money, waste time, and make you as an attorney look bad.
Okay.
And I have a list of 42 points that I use to make sure that we don't make those mistakes. I'll sit down and walk you through some of those.
Okay.
You only need 3 or 4, whatever you think are the most common ones. But when you go to court and see, for example, the attorney didn't publicize the sale and upload it in the court documents, and they don't know that's one of the rules. One of the rules is you have to publish in the newspaper we're going to sell the property and then not accept a contract till after that date. That's a common mistake. You go, well, Bill, that seems pretty basic. No, it is basic. Most attorneys make common mistakes in probate court. But by helping them avoid that, they won't make that mistake. They won't lose that money. They won't cause their estate that kind of problem. Does that make sense? So the list of mistakes is to talk to the attorney or the referral source or the petitioner of your next deal. This is what I've seen in my competition. Let me show you a couple MLS printouts, how bad some of these other agents are. You could show them the MLS printout with mistakes on it. And some are just horrific.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, other questions? Catch that you get the referral next time. Yeah, this is about working for the business in the future. Anybody near Schenectady, New York? What part of Schenectady, Lynette? You're Albany, okay. Anybody near Albany or Schenectady, New York? Lynette's looking to meet up with you. Who else had a question? I'm sorry. Heard somebody know.
I had a quick question. As far as approaching the attorneys with that kind of information, and by the way, this whole lawyer thing really works for you because we're all asking you about lawyers. Usually when Chad does it, we all ask about certain transaction engineering. You're the lawyer guy.
Exactly.
So a little story, and this was not a lawyer, but it was a sales director of a retirement home. I had met her. We had a great relationship. We made a connection. Then she ended up quitting. But in the meantime, I met her, and then one of her friends introduced her to another realtor. She mentioned that she was working with me and that she had met me and I provide the service and everything like that. And immediately during that lunch, the other realtor decided to punch up all my stats and kind of showed it to the sales director. My volume's not high because I do part-time, however, whatever that means. And that immediately turned off the sales director from working with that particular realtor because she said that's kind of it's backdoor. She didn't appreciate that. So at which point in a relationship with a lawyer do you think that you could feel confident enough to where you're not going to look, I don't know, not stand up if you bring up that their previous realtors have made all these mistakes and pointing these out to work on that relationship? Because it can backfire on you is what I'm saying.
So let me ask you this. Everybody on the call here, who here besides me has seen the movie My Cousin Vinny? If you have, either raise your hand or put in the chat box me. Okay, so Dan has, Mark, who else has seen it? Just real quick, show of hands. Okay. Who's not seen the movie My Cousin Vinny and wants to market to attorneys? Raise your hand.
Okay, best money you'll spend is rent the movie My Cousin Vinny. One of my favorite movies of all time, hysterical. But the sales application to Dan's question is this. The premise of the movie is these two young boys are wrongly accused of a crime. And Vinny is an attorney, a cousin of one of them. But it was his first trial ever. And it was in another state. I think it was Mississippi, I think, or some other state in the South, Alabama. And so at first blush, he was making some mistakes. He looked silly, and he's a New Yorker with an accent. It's a comedy. But there's a scene there where the other attorney does a bad job, and then Vinny does a good job. And one of the two defendants says, "You're fired," to his attorney. "I want him to represent me." And so to answer your question, I think that you want to get to where people say, "I want you to help me get this property sold," with conviction, and maybe not even know why, because you look so professional. I don't think it has to do with your track record. It has to do with your demeanor, your systems, your confidence. It's the whole package. And frankly, that's one of the reasons I use social media. I don't ask attorneys to refer me business. I would never ask them for referrals, but they see me all the time in social media. I have a YouTube channel. I post on LinkedIn, Facebook. They see me in court. They see me at the Bar Association events. I'm not going to the mixer events. I'm going to the professional events. And so and then I make an effort to reach out to them. When I'm on a real estate deal and there's an attorney, I see a name somebody I know, of course I call them. I don't need to call them. I could email them. I even could text them, but I want to talk to them on the phone. So I make that extra phone call. So to answer your question, I don't have a specific thing, but I would just say marketing is about getting people to want to work with you where they say, "I want you." And you got to do whatever you have to do to get to that point with people. Does that help a little bit? Yeah. But see the movie. I'll tell you this, 90% of the attorneys, you ask them, what's the best movie on the practice of law? They'll say My Cousin Vinny. So if you want to understand attorneys and their way of thinking, you have to see that movie. Plus it's hysterical. Stephanie.
Okay, so I have this issue that I'm currently dealing with. I have a client that needs vacant insurance in all reality. This is the first time I've actually ever had somebody that needs vacant insurance. My father is an insurance agent, and he suggested that I suggest to my clients to attempt to pay off the balance while they're going through probate so they can keep the regular policy so they don't have to pay for vacant insurance, and it's always worked. But now I can't find anybody to write this lady vacant insurance. Nobody will call me back. Nobody will call her back. And my family's in the insurance industry. They're telling me it's because it's not profitable and it's a headache. Does anybody have any nationwide companies that they know that will write somebody some vacant insurance?
I'm a real estate investor, and I always find properties and they're vacant. And always get insured. I have an insurance agent that he's also an investor, so he knows that. Where are you located?
Georgia.
Okay, I'm in Florida. Maybe you can help it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Just I'm in the Facebook group. I'll put a post on there and just respond on the post if anybody has any ideas. That would be great too.
Okay.
I believe I have one also. I can't say that I've used him for out of state. I use him locally, but he pitched. I was at an event on Sunday, and he was talking about how he has two businesses. He's a farmer's agent and he's outside farmer's book. And his outside farmer's book is all about real estate investors, and he does a national. I'm actually interviewing him next week. So, but if Ruben has one and somebody else did, he had the info in the chat box, or put it on the Facebook group and share with the group. That's why we have those things, is to share these best practices and work together. That's fantastic.
Real quickly for Stephanie, I don't necessarily, well, I do have someone that actually I spoke with today that agrees to write locally. I don't know if they're going to write out of state. However, she mentioned to me that a way to circumvent the need for vacant home insurance or unoccupied home insurance is to actually have the property checked on monthly. So some insurance companies are now requiring that there's essentially a home watch or property management, but home watch companies in Florida are not necessarily property managers because they don't have to be licensed. They get insured to check on a property, but they don't have to be licensed. So she said that the way to circumvent the high cost is to have the property checked on monthly. So I'm going to start informing people of that and connecting them with her, but that's a way to probably add some value to the families, because it'll be about, I don't know, in Florida, they're about $40-$50 per visit or whatever, but the vacant home insurance is quadruple that. So it might save them some money, and short term or long term. It doesn't matter if they keep the property, but it's not occupied or rented. It stays vacant while they go on through whatever they go through. It'll give them some peace of mind that the property won't lose any of its, if something's damaged or whatever, they're not going to be punished for that. That's my thought. That's my.
Definitely one of the best value adds for out of state and for attorneys over properties where their customers out of state, a client, is visiting the property. I work for a large company where I can pay somebody per hour to go drive a property, knock on the door, tell me who's there, shoot me pictures. And I probably have one of those being done a week or two of those a week as part of my lead generation and differentiation with attorneys. Dave, Gwen, I saw your hand up.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. I would also want to mention real quick, if the house is vacant and it doesn't have coverage in the current policy, be careful, because if it's vacant, even if you have someone show up, they still might not cover the claim if there were to be a loss. So just be careful there. And I got a deal I've been working on here, and it's in the realm, but not a true probate per se, but an interesting one that you'd come across similar circumstances, I think, in this niche market that we're all in. So I'm an investor, came across a deal with, it's funny, there was a tax lien that was redeemed for the property that the treasurer's deed was issued. It was then voided because there's a Colorado state statute that says that, up to 9 years, the owner, if they were disabled at the time, it can revert back to the owner. So it wound up, the treasurer's deed was voided. However, she's now in an assisted living situation with no other assets. And I think Medicaid's paying the bill. So as soon as that ownership comes back into her name, it's going to get fouled up by Medicaid, is my understanding. And so I'm just trying to, if anybody's got some ideas, having been through anything similar or how that might work. It's a rundown vacant house that's hasn't been occupied for 10 years or something.
Well, for property, so you need a attorney who knows Colorado law. But just to game plan some ideas, if the property is not reverted back yet, the title is not clearly in her name, I don't know what the process is in California. You have to file a motion to take it back. They don't just hand you back the property deed, say, oh, we're sorry, it's yours now. It's a right you exercising and can redeem the property. And so her estate might waive the right in exchange for some money going to a trust or some family member or something. But in California, where we have the right of redemption, you don't just automatically get it back. You have the right to redeem, but you have to file the documents to do that. And you can choose not to, and at the same time get compensated for choosing not to take it.
Yeah, so it's a little different than a redemption, because they actually filed suit to void the treasurer's deed. Her family, her estate.
So then they must have a game plan for this. They did this for some reason.
Yeah, I don't understand why it wasn't already, because she's been in the assisted living before it was taken out of her name, and she doesn't have any other assets. So that I found interesting that they didn't already, because she's been in the assisted living, and then it went through the whole tax treasurer's deed issued and then subsequently voided. And by voiding the treasurer's deed, it goes back to the ownership as if the treasurer's deed never happened. So,
I know it disparage all attorneys, but I would say too many of them, I think, are focused on getting paid for activity and not for, I'm in the results business. People pay me to get house sold to get the money in my pocket. So I don't know, either the attorney made a mistake or the attorney had the game plan you're not aware of.
Yeah.
It's one of those two, because why would you go through the trouble of suing to get the property back if you don't benefit from it? You're just spending the attorney's fees.
Right.
Perfect. And they probably pay for the attorney's fees out of pocket. They'll actually be net negative, but they just let the thing go. So again, are you in contact with the attorney who did all that work?
No, I'm in contact with the power of attorney, the son.
He may just be aware what the game plan was. It might be a game plan that doesn't involve him.
Yeah.
I don't know. But those are the kind of things, these are the kind of things where I'll pull documents together and send a question to an attorney that I prefer some business to. And just to kind of I'm just curious if you have an opinion on this, or what can be done. But I think that's the kind of thing where those relationships to me are more valuable than just referrals. They help me get new business.
Yeah. Pre-probate, not even, pre-death situation that you're going to come across in this business for sure. So, and I got one other quick one if no one's got their hand up for you.
Go ahead.
I have another one that someone passed away last year. Long story short, can't find the will. I have found the niece, and turns out she didn't even know that he had a daughter that passed away in 2014 and an ex-wife. and the daughter that passed away may or may not have had children. So they would fall in front of a niece in the lineage downstream bloodline of heirship. I had a private investigator. She thought that he wasn't even married or had any children. So just trying to get some ideas on that. If anybody's got some experience there.
I mean, I deal in that space pretty regularly. Somebody just has to do the research and be willing to go on the line. Once you know somebody is entitled to at least a portion of it, then you're kind of off and running. And oftentimes what I'll do with that is I'll take it to a inheritance advance company, and they'll advance some money to get an attorney and pay for a private investigator, get things spun up. So, it's a complicated situation that somebody has to put time in, and generally people need some help to get that work done. So if your question is, you think there's at least one error, but there might be several pieces, at least that one error should get started on the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's, if there's no will, she's put a bunch of time and money into it already, but those children would jump in front of her, as I understand it, and completely, if there's no will.
I'm kind of surprised the PI couldn't drum something up because, usually at some point
she did a hell of a job with what she did, because I couldn't find anything through my usual channels of skiptracing.
But if you can find it, that is enough for a probate court, at least in California. That's all you need to do. You go to private investigator and they say, we've exhausted all effort, we don't find anything. That's usually proof enough to say there's nothing else and move forward. The other thing is in California, she can apply to be the personal representative as an administrator and get paid. Go to the other heirs and say, hey, I might be able to shake some money out of this for you. If you're okay, would you support me being the petitioner? I've already done some work and I can get this thing done for you. And they might say, yeah, we stand to get money, we're fine, and you'll get a fair share if that's the case. So sometimes that person who doesn't know can at least file the petition. They can't spend a lot of money on it, obviously, but they can file a petition. And if they get the other heirs to sign on with them, and that happens a lot. People get called out of state, hey, it looks like there might be 25% heir to a property. I'd like to open a probate. Would you sign on and approve me, sign on to the petition, approving me as the petitioner? But again, that would go into details of Colorado law I'm not very familiar with.
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
And the heirs company might also have some input for you as well. The Advanced Heirs Company, they're a real good resource for these kinds of problems for me.
Did you say heirs company?
The Advanced Inheritance Company is a great resource for this.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
I interviewed one, Paul Wilkins on my YouTube channel, Bill Goes EXP on YouTube. He's with one of the companies, Advanced Inheritance, but he's somebody might call in a case like this and does a good job. Okay, I think we're here at the witching hour. Unless anyone has a burning question, I think we'll wrap up today. Sorry for the drama with my audio, and just know I did my best to check ahead of time. I even did sound checks, tested myself a few times, but it was really fun. Thank you for letting me fill in for Chad. He's again working on some personal issues. Asked me to fill in today, so I really appreciate you guys supporting me. It's a great group. I appreciate you guys' participation on the Facebook group. Feel free to ask questions there. Post your information about the insurance companies. We'll be looking for that. I texted my guy to see if he can help you out of state as well. In out of state investors, I know he does in California. But thanks for being on the call. We do this every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and whatever's appropriate in the middle. This is Chad Corbett's Probate Mastery Alumni Group. Look forward to seeing you guys here next week in the future. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Bill.